For this module, we'll be dealing with spreadsheets. So this focus application for this module will be Microsoft Excel. If you are an Apple user and you're probably going to be using AppleWorks, and the application that you'll be using is Numbers, that is the equivalent of Excel. It's not as robust as Excel. However, it will get the job done for this class purpose. Let me mention this. If you are using Numbers, you do have the capability of saving the file in a .xls format. Please save your files with a .xls extension, not a Numbers files, so that way I can grade your work no matter which type of computer I'm using. So Microsoft Excel is one of the most popular spreadsheet softwares, and that's the reason why we're going to actually go over it a lot today, because it's a common application that people use when they want to do spreadsheet work. During this module, we're going to discuss different spreadsheet formatting and also academic and professional uses for spreadsheets. So for the spreadsheet format, we're going to go over some basic features, and then we're going to also review some more advanced formatting features. As far as the academic and professional uses, we're going to talk about calculating data and charting your data. So let's talk about these features. So here we have an image that compares a spreadsheet versus an accounting ledger. Now the spreadsheet was originally created just to work with numbers. It is completely different than working with a word processing software or an image editing software. Another thing to note is that the spreadsheets are created to mimic an accounting ledger. So if you look at this ledger, you'll see it is broken down very similar to a spreadsheet. It's broken down into columns and rows, and each row is called a record. So if you look at it that way, a spreadsheet really is a database that contains records. Now, every time you open Excel, you're dealing with a workbook that contains multiple worksheets. And I'm going to show you how to create different worksheets, how to eliminate different worksheets, how to rename your worksheets. We're going to talk about that. But just note that every workbook can contain multiple worksheets. So this is just a diagram, or a screenshot, I should say, of an Excel spreadsheet. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to go into Excel really quickly here, but I just want to break down something real quick about the spreadsheet organization. So the way it's organized is that you have a worksheet, and on that worksheet, it contains 256 columns. The columns are represented by the letters, and it also contains over 65,000 rows, which are represented by the numbers. Now, where these columns and rows intersect at, that's where you have over 16 million cells. So let's talk about the intersection. Inside of these cells, you can put labels, values, and formulas. So there could be that much data inside of each spreadsheet. To demonstrate that, why don't we go into Excel now? Just close out of this PowerPoint. I'm going to go over to Excel. And let's just talk about what we have here. So again, you have your columns at the top. They're represented by letters. Then you have your rows represented by numbers. Now, every time you click into a cell, it activates that cell. So if I click into this cell here, it just activated my cell. How do I know where I'm at when I'm in my spreadsheet? Well, if I look up here, it highlighted the column D, and it highlighted the row 6. So now I know I'm in cell D6. Another reason why I know that, if I look over here a little bit to the left, I should see something called the name box. And inside the name box, it tells me which cell I'm in. So if I click into a different cell, again, it's going to highlight the column that I'm in, which is J. It's going to highlight the row that I am to let me know you're in J7. And I also see that over here in the name box. Now, once I want to key something in here, let's say if I want to type Mr. John. Notice that the information appears inside the cell, but it also appears in what's called the formula bar. So every time you type something, it actually appears in the formula bar. I can continue to type inside the formula bar. So if I click inside my formula bar where it says Mr. John, I'm going to type the number 77 and hit enter. And now that information appears in the cell, and it appears in the formula bar. Now, towards the bottom of the screen, you should see where you have your sheets. Now, right now, I have sheet 1. If I wanted to add another sheet, I could see a plus here. I can click this plus, and now I have a sheet 2. Notice that what's on sheet 1 is completely different than what's on sheet 2. So if I click on sheet 1 and I wanted to rename it so that I know what it is, I can easily either right click on the tab and go to rename, and I can type topic 1. If I want to rename this sheet, I can do the same thing, right click on it, rename, type topic 2. So that's how you can keep adding sheets, and you can rename them so that they mean something to you. Another quick little nice trick is that, have you ever typed something over and over and over again and you knew it was a multiple of something and you had a pattern and you just wish you could automatically fill it out? Let's say I want to do multiples of 2's. I set a pattern. 2, 4, I know the number next is going to be 6. I don't want to type it. I want to highlight those 2 cells by using my mouse. I wait till I get a white cross. Once I do that, I can see that I highlight those 2 cells. In the corner, I see what's called a handle. It looks like a little handle there. If I put my mouse over that handle, I get what's called a 4 cross. If I click and hold and drag that down and pull it down, this is called the fill tool. It will automatically populate in multiples of 2's because I've set a pattern. Let me do that again. So I'm going to come over here now. I'm clicking into cell J14. I'm going to type 5. Then I'm going to type 10. Now I've set a pattern. So once I highlight those 2 cells, I put my mouse over my fill handle tool, which is in the corner. I click, I hold, and I pull down. And now I have a list of multiples of 5's. So it doesn't just have to go down. You can actually go across. So let's say I type Monday, Tuesday. Now I highlight those 2 cells. I use my same handle, but this time I pull across, and I should see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I could do that also for months. So let's say I type Jan and Feb. So now I'm setting a pattern. I want the months. I get my fill handle, I click, and I drag across, and now I get the months. Nice and easy, simple way of doing it. So this is a really, really good tool. So let's say I want to take all this information. I can copy it, have it go into my other spreadsheet, if that's what I want to do. So there's easy, multiple sheets, and some patterns. I just want to review some of the basics before we actually go inside of a spreadsheet and do some work. So we have, again, you have your rows represented by the numbers. You have your columns represented by the letters. I can know which cell I'm in by clicking into my cell, and it highlights the column letter, and it highlights the row, and it appears over here in my name box. And whatever I type inside of a cell will appear in my formula bar, or vice versa. If I click into a cell, I can use the formula bar to type what I want to have appear inside of my cell. So now we're going to go to a spreadsheet. Let's just go to a practice spreadsheet, and let's do a little bit of some basic formatting. So I'm going to click into this cell here, which is H5. And one of the things that I want to do is I want to do some formatting for my decimals. So I'm going to click into what I have H5 here, and I'm going to follow these instructions. And it says basically set the format of the cell so that the number is only with 1 decimal place. So now for me to do that, I highlight the cell. You always want to select, then do. I highlight the cell, and then I'm on the Home tab, and inside the Home tab, I should see a group in there called Number. Inside that number group, I'm going to click on the Number Format More button, which is in the bottom right of that number group. I'm going to left click. Once I'm there, I should see I have multiple tabs. You have alignment, font, and border, and fill and protection. Well, we're going to stay on the number tab. And right now, this is categorized as a general cell, which means that I can type anything in here from text to numbers. There's no specific number formatting. Well, I do want to make this a number formatted cell, so I change the category to number. Notice I get more options. I should see something here called decimal places, and right now I'm showing 2 decimal places, so I can use the spindle And I can press my arrow down and I can say I only want one decimal place. Notice what it did do. It formatted this cell so that it actually only has one decimal place and it rounded up for me. Now when I click OK, I should see only 2.9. I see a number here with only one decimal place. Let's keep going. So I'm going to click into H6 and I'm going to follow those instructions. So this one says format the cell to be in currency. Another way for me to do that, again, I'm on my Home tab. I'm in the number group. Up here, I should see a drop down. I have different formattings that I can do. One of them is called currency. So I'm going to left click currency. And now I should see a currency symbol, and it should be formatted with decimals. Now, one thing that's really great about Excel is that you don't have to wait to actually format. So let's say I know I want all these cells to be currency. So I do the same thing. I highlight my cells, come over here and change them to currency. I don't see any difference in these cells until I enter some data. So now if I hit 10, or if I come over here and say 541, all these cells are formatted with a currency. And I didn't have to do anything. All I did was format them to be a currency. Whenever somebody keys into that area, they will actually see that. So it's an easy tool. Now let's change also for percentage. So when I click into H7, and my instructions is to change this to a percentage, not a decimal place. I see there's a shortcut already here. Again, I'm on my Home tab. I'm in the number group. Now I see there's a shortcut that looks like a percentage. So basically that means a percent style. So I'm going to left click that, and it automatically changes this to a percent style for me. Let's keep going then. So let's go to H8. So I click into H8. Right now, this is decimal, but it wants it to change to a fraction. Well, I can come up here, click on my drop down, and I see there's an option there called fraction. So I'm going to left click there. So all these formatting is just a basic number formatting that you should be aware of when you first start working into Excel. And they're always typically on the Home tab in the number group where you can find your basic number formatting. Now let's talk about changing some text alignments. I'm going to click on my second tab here, which is my second sheet. And I'm going to highlight this information. Like right now, I want to change it. The instructions to change it to a 45-degree angle. So I'm just going to highlight this information here. Highlight my cells. And now, again, I'm still on the Home tab. I'm going to go to the alignment group this time because I want to change the way it's aligned. So I'm going to click on my alignment settings. It looks like a More button. Now I'm on my alignment tab. I have a few options. I can use this rotation if I want to do 45 degrees. And I can just rotate this up till I get to 45 degrees. And I click OK. Now my information has been rotated. The text looks good. You can also use what's in this alignment tab. This alignment group. You have different ways you can have your text rotated. Like I can have my text rotated up. I can choose here. They have some default rotation. There's different ways that you can format it. Now, one thing I do want to take note of is that if you look right here, I can kind of tell this is not going to fit on the full page. And one way for me to always test that, if I go to File, and I go to Print, and I look at my print preview, I can see that this is already going to print on 2 pages. So I have a few options to fix that. So I'm going to go back into my spreadsheet, and I'm going to go to the actual Page Layout tab. And in the Page Setup, I can change my orientation. So if I choose to change the orientation to landscape, I can see how this dotted little fine line came up here. I can see now that my information will fit on one page. So if I go back to File and go to Print and I take a look at my print preview, I now have everything all on one page, which looks a whole lot better. So now let's go into my third sheet, which is Merge and Center. So Excel is a little bit different than Word, where it doesn't have all the formatting tools and tables and things like that that you may want to do, but if you can manipulate it to work a little bit better for you. So I'm just going to follow these instructions here. You see how you have merge and center these cells across from A to M? So the way for me to do that, you guys probably have used Excel and couldn't figure out how people were merging and putting things centered. I'm going to click onto the first cell, which is A, and I'm going to come over here to the column M. I'm going to highlight it first. Remember, always select, then do the work that you want it to do. Once I let go, on the Home tab, in the Alignment group, I should see one there called Merge and Center. If you see there's a drop down too, you can merge and center, you can merge across, you can merge cells, and you can also unmerge cells. So nothing you do is permanent. So I'm going to click Merge and Center. Notice everything now looks like one big cell. When I click away, when I click here, I'm highlighting all this. This is all one big cell has been merged into A1. I'm going to do that one more time. So this instruction is saying to merge D through H. So I'm going to highlight those cells, and then I'm going to click in the Alignment group, Merge and Center. So I don't have enough room to show everything in here. So I'm going to take my I-beam and I'm going to put it between these two columns, H and I, and I'm going to click and I'm going to drag it across so I can see everything. So that's how you would resize your columns. You put your insertion point in between the two column letters here, and once you get a two-headed arrow, you click and you can drag to the left or you can drag to the right, and that will change the width of the column. So let's do this last one real quick. So this one is merging from column B over to column J. So I highlight those cells. Again, I go to my Alignment group and I click Merge and Center, and now everything is aligned across into one cell between B and J. Let's go now to our fourth sheet, which is Borders and Shading. So I'm going to click there. Now by default, Excel does not show these grid lines. This is called a grid line. You know, you can see these real faint gray lines to separate them. Well, if I go to Print Preview right now, I won't see those fine gray lines. They don't show up, which makes it hard if people actually have to print. People rarely print anymore, but if you do have to print, you want for people to be able to see something. So I'm going to put some border in. And for me to do that, I highlight and select the cells I want to apply the border to. Once I select all of that information, I'm going to change the bordering style. And for me to do that, I'm going to be on the Home tab, in the Font group, and I should see one there called Borders. So for the beginning, I'm just going to try doing one on the outside. So I'm going to click Outside. When I click away, I should see that I have a border going around my text here. So now, let's say I want to put in borders inside. So I highlight my text. I go back to my font group. I click the drop down. I should see one called All Borders. So I'm going to left click All Borders. So now when I click away, I should see now I have a border going around every single cell. All borders now have an actual border on the side. All cells, I should say, have a border inside. Now another option you have is what's called shading. So I'm going to highlight just what's in column E, and I'm going to apply some shading. And that again is in the font group, and it looks like a little bucket spilling over of paint, and it's called the fill color. So if I click here, I'm going to pick a color and select. And I can pick a different color here. So if I click and I highlight these cells, and I go up to my font group, and I click a different color. Same thing here. I highlight my cells. I go up here. I pick a different color. I come up here. I select everything. Come up here, and I pick a different color. So that's some basic formatting. For your practice activity, you will be going over these same similar things. So hopefully this will give you in the right direction. Again, if anybody has any questions, send me an email.